In 1981, Saul David, the producer of Logan's Run, released his memoirs in a book titled The Industry: Life in the Hollywood Fast Lane. Logan's Run is barely mentioned within the book, except for one section lasting about 5 pages. I'll read that section to you now. In Logan's Run, a confectionery science fantasy about a distant future devoted to mindless pleasure, there was a sequence called The Love Shop. To be well over onto the safe side, it was filmed as a kind of dream sequence, slow motion, heavily filtered lenses, intermittent strobe lighting, and so on. Choreographed by a genuine ballet choreographer named Stefan Wenta. The dancers looked nude, but they were not. The sequence lasted a couple of minutes, just long enough for the boy and the girl to chase through, followed by the heavy. Everybody liked it. Although there was some grumbling that it was too arty, not sexy enough. But what the hell? The movie was for kids. The studio executive who regularly dealt with the rating office had no qualms about it. PG, he said, no question about it. Not exactly Disney, but PG for sure. This in answer to my concern whether the sequence ought to be shown to the rating board before it was cut into the film and scored. You'll just call attention to it that way. So, the sequence was cut and scored and the finished film sent to the rating board with very little time to spare. Don't worry about a thing, said the executive in charge of those matters. It's a PG. It was not. It came back with an R rating because it, quote, contains an excessive amount of sexually oriented footage. Oh my God. Fevered meetings. We've got to have a PG. Can we bluff them? No way. But what exactly does that mean? Exactly? They don't say. Well, can you ask them? Sure. Okay. Ask for a meeting with them, with, what's his name? Hefner. See if you can get them to say exactly. Maybe it's just a couple of feet of film here and there. Sure, that's it. A couple of feet. Ask the guy to be reasonable. Absolutely not, said Hefner, head of the rating board. I will not point out any specifics. If you want to change it, I'll look at it as often as you like, but I have no suggestions to make. Try reason. Look, Mr. Hefner, we sincerely thought it was PG. We weren't trying to sneak something over. So our problem is, we don't know what's troubling you, so we don't know where to fix it. I'm sorry, said Hefner. I'll look at it as often as you like. But Mr. Hefner, look, he said. I'm in a hurry. I'm sure you know what's offensive as well as I do. So you'll just have to do what's necessary, and when I come back from New York, I'll look at it again. Panic on the 3rd floor. How long will he be gone? A couple of weeks. A couple of weeks? We'll blow the release dates. You gotta get him to be specific. Look, Mr. Hefner, you say excessive, right? That means there's too much. Would you help us understand what kind of too much? What if we print the whole sequence down 6 points? It's pretty dark now. And if you print it down 6 points, it will be a dark night scene in the average theater, and in the drive-ins, you'll just barely see something moving. If you want to try that, go ahead, said Hefner. I'll look at it before I leave. Have the lab make a rush print, overnight or better, never mind what it costs. The brightness of the image on the theater screen is subject to a number of variables, including the distance from projector to screen, the length of throw, the actual reflecting surface of the screen itself, and how old or smoke-browned it might be, the kind of projector, whether arc or xenon lamp, and so on. All of these factors are supposed to be considered and harmonized by the individual theater owner, who is expected to read the light from time to time and make adjustments as necessary, according to a numbered scale of foot lamperts read from the projection booth. It's a simple system designed to assure that wherever you see the movie, you'll see about the same as everyone else. Let's say the desired number is about 14 FL. If the projection light is off by 2 or 3 points, anyone would know the difference. Filmmakers care like hell about getting the light correct. They fuss over the printing of individual scenes and sequences, believing that those differences mean everything in the mood and tone of the movie. But with rare exceptions, exhibitors don't give a damn. Even in Hollywood, where a man with a film playing in one of the major theaters may be assumed to show up every couple of nights to see how it's going, it's commonplace for the light to be down 50%. When you see a movie of yours somewhere out in the 50 states, you usually think you're seeing it underwater. Most exhibitors just don't give a damn. So when the printed down sequence was ready, I looked at it and my heart sank. Mud. Our classy little ballet looked like one of those underwater sea shorts of turtles moving through a bed of kelp. Show it to them that way, said my superior. We gotta get the PG. If it's too dark, we'll correct it in the release prints. I phoned Hefner again. We have a new print, I said, and we feel sure it will meet any objections. But just in case, could we look at it together? And you people point out or just make a noise if you see something objectionable. A long silence, followed by a heavy sigh. All right, said Hefner, just this once. 3 of us went over to the MPAA office with the reel of film, producer, editor, and executive, grateful and ready to take notes, hoping for the best. Hefner led us into a lush little screening room, introduced us to the other members of the board, and waved us to our seats. Just one thing, he said. We'll make our comments while it's running, and you can take notes, but you are not to answer or argue. Just listen. I said, but no buts, no nothing, said Hefner. His board, each of them seated by now, looked at us blankly. Okay. The lights went out, and the screen lit up. Before 50 frames had unrolled, I yelled out, "Stop it! Lights!" The film stopped, and the room lit up. Hefner was staring at me in a rage, but I didn't care. For God's sake, do you ever read that screen? I bet it's 18 or more. Hefner sighed heavily. Clearly he didn't know what I was talking about. I explained about the FL scale, pointed out that the national average was about 11 FL, that we had printed for 13. But here, in this little room, the dark, mysterious footage was lit up like a bathroom in a bus station. Things I had never seen before were visible, even stage nails in the set walls. Incredible. I don't see what that's got to do with it, said Hefner in his Eastern prep school intonation. I tried again, watching his impatience and contempt and disbelief rise as I spoke. Wait a minute, I said, while I asked the projectionist. The projectionist just peered at me and shrugged. They like it bright, he said. I don't know exactly. Maybe 20? Hefner heard me out impassively, shrugged. Do you want to run it or don't you? Licked, I nodded and sat down. The lights went out and the film rolled. And now, in the darkness, the rating board gave tongue. Tits, I see tits. Nudity, full frontal, right there. Buttocks, on the right. Buttocks. Breasts again. What's he doing? Sexual writhing. Breasts. Crack in the ass visible. Breasts. Buttocks. Asses. Tits. The voices went on and on for a couple of minutes, rising constantly higher and more quickly in the darkness like some crazy word orgy. Finally, just the words, shrilling and snapping, intermittent hiss of breath. Breasts. Ass. Tits. Then it was finished and the lights came on again. The board relaxed, breathing audibly in the silence. Finally I said, Can we discuss possible cuts? No, said Hefner. We told you what we think. The cuts are up to you. You know, I said, time is really pressing. And unless we have some clue as to what will satisfy you, we won't make the release date. You've just got to give us some idea of what you're after. Silence. Well, I said, let me put it this way. Will anything help? Is there any way we can preserve the sense of the sequence and get a PG rating? For the first time, one of the boards spoke. What's the place in the movie called? The sex place, right? No, it's called The Love Shop. He nodded, looked around at his fellows. See what I mean? Then it's the idea you're opposed to. Hefner jumped in. No, we have nothing to say about thematic content or artistic values. We just comment on the film we see. Does that mean you don't differentiate between a nude on a museum wall and a nude in a porno? I told you, Hefner was annoyed. We don't make any comment on artistic values. But surely that's the whole... Look, Hefner said. You agreed not to argue with our comments. But, I'm sorry, we went out of our way to be helpful. He was turning to the door. I made one more try. Can I ask a question? He turned. What about the full frontal nudity you keep pointing out? Well, what about it? There wasn't any, I said. They may have looked nude, but... I never got to finish the sentence. Back at the studio, I said, why don't we take a chance? Fight it. Silence. Then the executive in charge of such things said, I don't mean to be critical, but I think you antagonized him. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, he said, maybe you better let me handle it from now on. And that's what happened. What was finally left in the film was less than 30 seconds long. Jerry Goldsmith's music was chopped into mere sound, and the few people who commented on the sequence said, I suppose you just had to drag in that pointless little sex bit, you people. I I wrote Hefner an angry letter, of course. In order to do it, I had to telephone his office for the correct spelling of his name. Heffner, said the secretary. Be sure you put in the 2 F's. He hates when people confuse him with that other man, the one from the Playboy magazine. What's the matter? Doesn't he want to be famous? But he is famous. He has his own television show, didn't you know? No. What's it called? Well, she said, it's a sort of interview and discussion show on PBS, you know. You can see it on Channel 28. What's it called? The Open Mind.